In 2008, Elon Musk had about 6 weeks of cash left. Tesla was bleeding money. SpaceX had just watched 3 rockets explode. His personal fortune from PayPal was nearly gone, dumped into 2 companies that Wall Street considered elaborate jokes. He was sleeping on friends' couches. And somehow, 15 years later, he became the richest person on Earth. This isn't a story about genius. It's a story about leverage. Most people think Musk built his empire by inventing things. He didn't. Tesla didn't invent electric cars. SpaceX didn't invent rockets. What Musk actually built was something more valuable and more fragile. A permission structure that lets him spend other people's money at a scale almost no one in history has accessed. The numbers tell a strange story. Between 2003 and 2023, Tesla burned through roughly $25 billion before it posted consistent annual profits. Where did that money come from? Not revenue. Tesla was selling a few thousand cars per year for most of that period. It came from investors who believed in something that didn't exist yet, and from the government. And from an accounting maneuver so creative it kept the company alive when it should have collapsed. Here's how it worked. In the mid-2000s, California created something called a zero-emission vehicle credit. The rule was simple. If you sell cars in California, a certain percentage have to be electric. If they're not, you have to buy credits from someone who does make electric cars. Tesla made only electric cars. So Tesla generated credits it didn't need and sold them to companies like Fiat Chrysler and General Motors for pure profit. Between 2009 and 2021, Tesla's owed about $7 billion worth of these regulatory credits. Without them, Tesla would have reported losses in multiple years when it claimed profitability. The company stayed alive by selling permission slips, but that's just the warm-up. The real leverage came from the stock market. In 2010, Tesla went public at $17 per share. The company was valued at about $1.7 billion despite losing money and producing fewer than 1,500 cars that year. By 2020, the stock hit $880 per share adjusted for splits, and the company was worth more than the next 10 largest automakers combined. Not because it made more cars, because investors believed it would. Tesla sold about 500,000 vehicles in 2020. Toyota sold over 10 million, but Tesla's market cap was larger. The gap between reality and belief became a weapon. Musk used that inflated stock price as collateral. He borrowed against his own shares, pulled billions in personal liquidity without selling, and funneled that capital into new ventures. He raised money by issuing new Tesla stock at sky-high prices, diluting existing shareholders but flooding the company with cash. In 2020 alone, Tesla raised over $12 billion this way. The company wasn't valued on cars sold. It was valued on a narrative about the future. And Musk realized that as long as he controlled the narrative, he controlled the money. SpaceX followed a different but parallel strategy. Musk founded the company in 2002 with a simple pitch: dramatically lower the cost of reaching space by reusing rockets. It sounded impossible. Every rocket ever launched by a government or corporation was single-use, a machine worth tens of millions of dollars that burned up or sank into the ocean after one flight. Musk said he could land them, refuel them, and fly them again. Skeptics assumed he'd go bankrupt trying. He nearly did. The first 3 Falcon 1 launches failed. By 2008, SpaceX was out of money. Then NASA awarded the company a $1.6 billion contract to resupply the International Space Station. It wasn't charity. NASA needed a backup after the Space Shuttle program wound down, and SpaceX undercut Boeing and Lockheed Martin on price by an absurd margin. The government didn't just save SpaceX, it became SpaceX's biggest customer. Between 2008 and 2024, SpaceX received over $15 billion in government contracts that includes cargo missions, crew transport, and the Artemis lunar lander program. Adding contracts from the Department of Defense and the National Reconnaissance Office, and the number climbs past 20 billion. Musk loves to talk about private industry outperforming bureaucracy, but SpaceX is a creature of government dependency. Without taxpayer-funded contracts, it doesn't exist. And here's the twist. SpaceX is private. It doesn't report earnings. It doesn't disclose financials. Estimates suggest the company is valued somewhere north of $150 billion based on private funding rounds, making it one of the most valuable private companies on the planet. But no one outside SpaceX actually knows if it's profitable on a sustained basis. Reusable rockets are real. Starship is flying. The engineering is legitimate, but the financial foundation is opaque. Investors are betting on Musk's reputation and the government's continued willingness to write checks. Now zoom out. Musk doesn't just run Tesla and SpaceX. He owns X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, which he bought for $44 billion in 2022. He runs Neuralink, a brain-computer interface company. He runs The Boring Company, which digs tunnels. He launched Zai, an artificial intelligence startup reportedly valued at $24 billion after raising $6 billion in funding. At any given time, Musk is juggling 5 or 6 companies in radically different industries, none of which he could personally manage in detail. This creates a problem. If you run one company, your wealth is tied to that company's performance. If you run 6, your wealth is tied to perception across all 6, and perception is volatile. In late 2022, Musk's net worth dropped by over $200 billion as Tesla's stock collapsed. He became the first person in history to lose that much wealth. Why? Not because Tesla stopped making cars, because investors started to worry that Musk was distracted by Twitter, that his political statements were alienating customers, that the aura of inevitable success was cracking. Then the stock recovered. By early 2024, Musk was back on top of the wealth rankings. Nothing fundamental changed about Tesla's production or revenue in that window. The narrative shifted. This is the uncomfortable truth about Musk's empire. It's not built on products. It's built on belief, and belief is sustained by a very specific formula. Demonstrate just enough technical progress to prove the skeptics wrong. Promise a radically better future just over the horizon, and maintain personal celebrity at a level that keeps attention locked on you. The moment any part of that formula breaks, the whole structure is at risk. Consider what happens if Tesla's competition catches up. Legacy automakers are pouring hundreds of billions into electric vehicles. Chinese manufacturers like BYD are already outselling Tesla in key markets. Tesla's advantage was never manufacturing scale. It was being early and being cool. Cool fades. And if Tesla becomes just another car company, its stock price collapses to something closer to Ford or GM. Musk's collateral evaporates. His ability to borrow against his wealth contracts. The leverage reverses, or consider what happens if SpaceX stumbles. Starship is designed to carry 100 people to Mars. It's the most ambitious aerospace project in history. It's also years behind schedule and has yet to complete a full orbital mission with payload recovery. If it fails repeatedly, or if costs spiral beyond NASA's willingness to pay, SpaceX becomes a company with brilliant rockets and no sustainable business model. It wouldn't be the first time a visionary aerospace company went under. The deeper you look, the more you see a man who's mastered the art of converting future promises into present capital. He's not a fraud, the rockets work, the cars drive, but the valuation of those achievements is inflated by a set of financial and regulatory mechanisms that are historically unusual and possibly temporary. Musk's wealth isn't just tied to what he's built. It's tied to what people believe he will build and what governments are willing to subsidize. And here's the final irony. Musk is now deeply involved in politics. He campaigned for candidates. He's floated ideas about running for office himself despite being ineligible for the presidency. He's positioned himself as a champion of free markets and minimal regulation. Yet his fortune depends on government contracts, regulatory credits, and investor speculation driven by narratives he controls. The man who rails against subsidy is perhaps the most subsidized entrepreneur in modern history. So what happens next? No one knows. That's the point. Musk has built an empire on leveraging belief, and belief is the most unstable foundation in finance. He could colonize Mars, he could lose everything in a single bad quarter. Or he could stay suspended in this strange space, perpetually valuable because people can't afford to stop believing. The question isn't whether Elon Musk is brilliant. The question is what happens when the bill comes due.